With me on the telephone this evening is Dr. Leonid Ksanfomality from the Space Research Institute of the Russian Academy of Sciences. We already briefly met in Nantes this year at the EPSC, and
first hints for it.
Yeah. So you already gave me a brief overview of your finding, and I was of course very fascinated. And after reading your paper that was now published in the Russian magazine for space science.
It is a Solar System Research magazine. Solar System Research.
Sorry.
And in Russian it is called Astronomical Herald, Astronomiический вестник, Astronomical Herald. And English version is called Solar System Research. Yes, it is an issue of this January. 46 is volume. Yeah. Number is one for January of this year.
All right. And there the paper has been published. A lot of people have already been writing about this paper. Not a lot of those people, I think, have read it. In any case, I read it and I was quite taken by the investigations you did and, let's say the claims that you deducted from this. Let's start with the Venera missions. Maybe you can give a brief timeline. So these images that we are talking about were all taken during, I think, Venera 13, yeah?
Yeah.
And I think this was in 1982. So this was a space mission where I think this is the only space mission that actually managed to land objects on Venus, robots, and these robots were functional for about 1 to 2 hours. And it was a series of space missions that took place from the late 70s until I think the mid 80s. Can you give an overview of this whole Venera program?
Yes, first of all, it was a series of rather success Soviet investigation. Strange enough, all missions that were sent to Venus were almost all success. Just in contrary, missions sent to Mars were not successful, and at the best case, we got few orbits of Mars missions, and after that we lost it. However, as for Venus, at the very beginning, there were other missions that were recognizing missions. As at that time, nobody knew that pressure at the surface of Venus is 92 atmosphere, 92 bars, and temperature at the surface is 460 centigrade. It is very severe condition, and the atmosphere consists almost all for CO2 gas. So the temperature is so high that if you can arise it for some maybe 60 degrees, then human eye would see red glowing of it. You see how high the temperature is. The beginning of these missions was not 82, it was 1975. At 1975, two first missions that were supplied with TV cameras were sent to the surface of Venus. They successfully worked there, and first images were transmitted by Venera 9 and Venera 10. It was absolutely fantastic, and what you still do not know, as my first paper about it, published just January, was dedicated to later missions of 82. However, looking for proofs of what was found there, I put my attention to missions of 1975, and I found there absolutely fantastic features. Still, it is just to be submitted to the press, and it is the second paper. However, some parts of it I will tell you about. But let us start with your question. 1982. Before it, after the beginning of this story with missions Venera 9 and 10, there were two other missions, Venera 11 and Venera 12. They also were provided with cameras. However, cameras were not opened as lids protecting this part of the spacecraft were not detached. And cameras were working in vain for this long time. However, only in next few years, when missions were repeated with 1982, two missions, Venera 13 and Venera 14, were quite success. So loss were one half of all possible images, as Venera 9 and Venera 10 also were provided with two cameras each, and only one worked.
So Venera 13, the one that we are looking at now, was started or launched in 82. The whole Venera program started in the late 70s. What was the primary scientific goal of the Venera missions?
Yes, at that time nobody knew what the nature and what physical condition at the surface of Venus are. So the first missions were made much earlier, starting with 70s, the beginning of 70s, and only probes making possibilities to construct more hard spacecraft that first were crashed by the atmosphere, as pressure is so high, about 100 atmosphere. After this mission, still it was possible to have two missions before Venera 9 and 10 that were not provided with any cameras, but just measured temperature and pressure. So, goals of new missions, we are speaking now about Venera 13, Venera 14. They were rather complicated. There were special instrumentation providing possibility to drill the surface, to take this heated soil inside of the spacecraft, to analyze its constitution, to analyze what it consists of, to measure radiogenic isotopes of soil, and so on and so on. Together with it, atmosphere was examined as few constituents, few minor constituents of the atmosphere are very important for understanding of evolution of the whole planet. Besides it, there were some other instruments. For example, before it, I tried to understand how small constituents, some very special small constituents of Venusian atmosphere are produced, and I suppose that maybe it were thunderstorms. And that mission, I put my two first new instruments. It was called thunderstorm, in Russian Groza. And so the discovery of thunderstorm on Venus were made. But let us come back to our images. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah. So the primary goal of this mission was to gather some data of the planet Venus, other than the data that was gathered before that by looking at it through a telescope, etc. So this was, as I understand it, the first mission that would really look at this planet in real detail and see what its atmosphere is composed of, and so on and so forth. So this was the first detailed look of humanity on the planet Venus?
Yes, of course. And besides it, it was first possibility to see the surface of other planet at all.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
As Martian surface came later.
And
Viking missions were the next year.
Okay.
So and surface of Venus 75 and Viking were 76.
So Venus was first. As I understand it, you were part of those missions from the get-go.
Yes.
And what was your role there again? What was
I was principal investigator in 3 different experiments.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you surely are the man to talk to if you want to know anything about those missions. Now back to those images. Can you sum up your discovery? Basically, that has been published in the Solar System Research, volume 46, and of course with a special focus on the so-called scorpion that you discuss in length there.
Well, scorpion is much more attracting to people than other features, and there are many of them at all.
There are many, yeah?
But, Tarek, I must say that the missions were, in fact, absolutely record. Nothing was repeated like this since that time, as these missions were made on the keen of the skill of engineers dealing with space research at that time. You see, nothing like this were repeated since that time, due to very heavy technical conditions, very sophisticated technical solutions that were used for it. But let me say that the instruments and all spacecrafts were designed so that guarantee for action on the surface of Venus were given for 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Of course, people believed that they could work a bit more. However, 30 minutes what was written in documents, in technical documents.
So that was the requirement. And so just to recapitulate, you fly spacecraft, sophisticated spacecraft, I don't know, millions of kilometers through the solar system to land on planet Venus and to take images for half an hour or maybe an hour.
Yes, approximately this.
Unbelievable.
But, yes, unbelievable. And unbelievable that you should understand that it was absolutely impossible to send images from the surface of Venus directly to Earth. The distance was about 110 million kilometers. And normally, spacecraft that are transmitting images, transmitting scientific measurements, scientific data, and so on, are using a very sharp ray of radio link as a parabolic antenna is placed on board of spacecraft, and it is directed directly to Earth. That's why all the power is directed in this very narrow beam that permits to gather enough energy on surface of Earth. However, it was not the case for Venus. You see, Venus is covered with very thick cloud layers, starting at 50 and ending at 70 kilometers. It is sulfuric acid, concentrated sulfuric acid, small droplets. Below 50 kilometers, the atmosphere is clean. However, where is Earth? The spacecraft is landing, but its brains do not know where Earth is. It is no possibility to send direct beam, direct radio beam. Do you understand?
Yes, so one of the problems is that the orientation is just not there.
No, it was absolutely impossible to do any orientation.
And the second, of course, this sulfur clouds, they also might maybe be
No.
a problem?
It is not very important.
All right.
Important was that by direct line, it was possible to transmit only few points of images for 1 second, maybe 2 or 3 points, nothing more. That's why above the planets there was orbiter. Approaching to Venus, the spacecraft was divided into 2 parts. One was lander, going down and landing, and the second was remaining part in the orbit of orbiter. That was provided with powerful and very sharply directed beam directed to Earth. Its radio receiver gathered the data that were sent from the surface of Venus. Do you understand me?
Yes.
The radio of the lander sent it all around the world. in 2p steradian. And part of this energy reached orbiter. And orbiter resent it to Earth. So this system works like this.
So the orbiter was the relay station, and because it was much closer to the lander didn't really need to know where it is. So it just sent out the signal, and because the orbiter was much closer than Earth, the orbiter could pick it up and then beam it back to Earth.
Yes, and
also a very fascinating concept for, this was 82.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, and there were many strange things about it. As first of all, you see, the orbiter was going around its orbit and going behind the horizon. Finally, it was going behind the horizon. That's why the receiving of radio was absolutely impossible after it. However, strange things were happening at that time, but I am now speaking about images, not about the radio. There were some adventures about it.
Okay, well, sounds fascinating too, but...
So we had about 1 hour for transmitting this data, and Venera 14 was working just for 1 hour. However, Venera 13 worked for 2 hours. And each image, it is not like TV image at all. At that time, there were no yet CCD produced. There were about CCD ideas. However, it was no CCD at all at that time. So the camera was a single receiver, photomultiplier. Each point after another was transmitted, and the system was optical mechanical. There was a scanning mirror. Each time after scanning one line, and lines were not like in TV, horizontal, they were vertical. After each line, the scanning mirror was rotating for 11 arc minutes and draw next line, and so and so and so. For one picture, they needed 13 minutes. After few first images were obtained, people lost interest to what happened after it. I am coming to the most important point of my telling. However, of course, the camera produced work on the surface of Venus. The radio system continued to send a signal. The orbiter obtaining the signal relayed it to Earth, and so on and so on and so on. As soon as images were obtained, combining black and white, red and green images, they produced color image and published it. And everybody was happy about it. Fantastic, fantastic achievement. However, besides it, there were images that were transmitted after all, and totally they have 11 images, 11 total panoramas for the whole mission of Venera 13. That durated for 2 hours, a bit more than 2 hours. And nobody was interested about their content. And what I am speaking about, my finding and few successfully obtained images from this mission. Do you understand me?
Yeah, so the lander took some first round of images, and people were happy with those, and they were running with those and publishing them. But actually the other images were just laying there in the archives.
They are not taken into account at all.
Yeah, and this, by the way, happened almost exactly 30 years ago. To the day, almost. I mean, it's. I think you said January 1982, and now it's, beginning of February 2012.
Now 30 years.
30 years after.
No.
Yeah.
But speaking strictly, I started this investigation still earlier. In 1978, my first scientific popular book was published, Planets Discovered in You. And in that book, I already published first image of habitant of Venus.
All
Results
right.
were, yes. of course, nobody agreed with me. At this image, it was not 1982, it was 1975. And at that image, at the very first plane of it, a strange feature is present that was called by geologists a strange stone. It seems like a sitting bird, rather large bird, about 40 centimeters. And of course, I put this image immediately to my attention and showed to all colleagues at my institute by saying, what you are saying about, it is absolutely impossible to have any kind of life at temperature 460 degrees. So, nevertheless, I am stupid, and I repeated this processing of images more and more. And now, 2 or 3 years ago, my processing system was enough to process images so that now it is possible to see some very strange features in all panoramas of that missions.
Venera 13. And just a question in between. Those images that you published in 75 already of this sitting bird.
No, it was in the book.
Okay. In that you published in the book. In 1975? You already
78.
78. And this image was taken on which mission?
Say it again.
On which mission was this sitting bird photographed?
Venera 9.
Venera 9, okay. So
75, yes.
So there were a lot of strange details on those images altogether. But today we focus on the Venera 13 missions.
Yes.
And there the first panorama was taken, and it's also part of your paper. And let's say everything seems quite normal, but then strange features seem to appear.
Right. You see, let us speak about it having strictly notion about what we see. We are not able to see that we see living creatures. We see some signs that must be analyzed, and some strange features that we see must be interpreted, or could be interpreted, better to say, as a living features. You see, you understand that not only me, but also other colleagues are dealing with these images, and most important is role of two persons who were authors of TV experiments. It is Professor Selivanov and Professor Gektin. They are still alive, they are still working, they continue their efforts, and of course, we are consulting with them about it. And a very nice conclusion, just aphoristic, made Gektin, Dr. Gektin. He says, we don't like interpretations that we are seeing a living creature. However, we are unable to find another explanation to what we see in these images.
And he's referring to the Venera 13 images.
It is for Venera 13 images, as Venera 9 and Venera 10 is only prepared for publication now, and it is the second paper.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Now, you have asked about Scorpion. For me, Scorpion is very important that it demonstrated also other features of possible life on Venus. First of all, it is very slow. Action that we are able to see or to act on surface of Venus are explained that we are provided with high energy. We have high energy from our flora, like all animals are able to feed itself by Earth's flora. Besides, we have oxygen atmosphere. So, energy that we are provided with by nature is very high. However, energy on surface of Venus, it is another question, and maybe it will not be discussed now, as it is a very complicated question. The energy is very low. It should be used in very economy way. That's why their action, and in these images I was able to find signs that say how fast they are. They are moving in very, very risky situation with speed about 4 centimeters per minute.
So
4 centimeters.
These are rather a snail than a scorpion, maybe then.
As for scorpion, you see, it was recovering from the soil that was ejected aside by the landing spacecraft, and for penetrating through 1 centimeter of soil, it spent 1.5 hours. So it is very, very weak. And we don't see this scorpion in next images. That means that for this time, and time was about 13 minutes when the TV camera returned to this place. For this time, it should went away with a speed not less than 6 or 4 centimeters per minute. So the movement for other features, we don't see at all, maybe for 2 or 3 other features like disk or black flap or something like this.
Yeah, so the scorpion wasn't the only feature that you discuss in your paper. And if I understand it correctly, then your model of what happened there when the Venera 13 robot touched down on Venus is it touched down with quite a, let's say, high velocity. Then there was some material ejected, or it was disturbed, and it covered the feature that you call scorpion. And then this animal, if we want to use this term, in your model, worked itself through this material that it was covered by because of the touchdown of the Venera robot. And that's why it appears in, I think it's the second panorama that Venera 13 takes. That's where the feature is visible, yeah?
Yes, but it appeared only after 93 minutes.
The second round of images, or the third round of images that Venera took, that's when it first appeared, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, and then it so to say, it worked itself through, and then on the next round of images, it was gone. And so in your model, you're saying that's when it crawled away, but it did so very slowly, because energy is low on Venus, because there are no plants, no nothing.
I suppose that there is flora and fauna. And fauna uses this flora.
All right.
However, it is the next our step, and still I am not able to speak about it. However, it is to be discussed now at few seminars at our Institution of Academy of Sciences. One of them is one of them is tomorrow. It is Physical Institute of Academy of Sciences, and the second is Institute of Genetics. And what is interesting that academician, namely academician Spirin, who is a very important person in this kind of investigation. It was the person who first read the genome of the human. He says that he does not see any violation of physical laws in behaving of these features. However, there are still many questions to be discussed, and maybe it will be beyond our lifetime. One
of the things that people, of course, can't imagine, or most people can't imagine, is that biology could exist at such a place, and we'll come to that in a minute. Before that, I mean, there was, of course, criticism raised. I just read, I would say, rebuttal by the Planetary Society that said that the argument simply can't be made based on the quality of those images, especially because the noise level gets higher the longer the lander stays on the surface. So after an hour or 90 minutes or even longer, there's more and more noise in the images.
Right.
And as I understand it, the Planetary Society says, based on this data, there can't be made any argument about the features seen because they could be more or less anything. And what do you answer, or what's your reaction to this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I know this point of view, and they have sent us their conclusions. But of course, first of all, you see, maybe you already tried to go deep into their argumentation. Have you read it?
I have read a summary. I've read a summary of it in German.
Then let me say you. They say that maybe the most important reason is different kind of modulation. Do you know that they wrote about it?
Yes,
no?
Yeah.
About different kind of modulation that were used for radio transmission of signal from the spacecraft, from the orbiter to Earth. It is a bit ridiculous. Let us suppose that you are listening to in the radio, and you are listening, let us say, Mozart. Then you are deciding to change the modulation. You go from the middle wave or from the short wave to FM. And suddenly you see that instead of Mozart, you hear Tchaikovsky. It is absolutely impossible if it is the same radio station. But supposing that result is dependent on modulation, immediately somebody will ask who came on with this kind of modulation and why it is used. You see, any noises are produced in some areas, and we are considering each pixel. This pixel may be noisy or without noises, or any action that are produced by noise may produce some part of images. But you see, it is absolutely impossible by statistic that images are produced by statistical distribution of noise points are producing the same image. That's why they are sending us two images, assuring us that we are observing the same image of the same surface and transmitted in the same panorama. Using our system of processing of images, we immediately saw that they are different images. One image was taken at 13 minutes and another at 93rd minute. And combination of points of noises into image like Scorpio is having probability about 10 in minus 100 degree.
Yeah, you give a statistical analysis of how big or how small, in this case, the probability would be that these objects that you discuss in this paper, namely the Scorpion, are produced by statistical changes of certain pixels that change their color because of some noise that is underlying the signal. And in my opinion, that is quite convincing what you put forward in your paper, at least to me, that the probability simply isn't there that this complex object that is coherent. I mean, it's not just one pixel, it's hundreds and hundreds of pixels that must have changed their color through some kind of magic to form this object. So I agree that the chances that this is just noise are simply not there. So and that's also one of the main arguments that was made by most of your critics, that this is noise, or that the quality and the resolution simply isn't high enough.
Well, you see, there are people who understand in this feature much better than I do. And it is, again, people who did these experiments 30 years ago. And I may rely on their opinion, as I provided them with my calculation, and they say, yes, it is still better than you do. They have consulted with people that produced a radio system at that time. And my question was, I was rather insistent about it. I say, you see, these results were sent to us as critiques. What should we answer? The answer was, we are not about to lose time for stupid things. Despite I asked them to put their opinion, like conclusion to the paper. Now, they are promising provide my second paper with their comments about it, where they will show that results are valid.
Let's see. I mean, certainly interesting to hear what other opinions are. Now, I'm sure you also thought about alternative ways to explain this. In your mind, I mean, what would be some candidates other than living creatures to explain the whole thing that you've seen? I mean, the appearance, the disappearance, and the morphology, and so on.
Tarek, maybe I was not explaining it in proper way. I just repeat what I say about opinion of my colleague, Dr. Gektin, who was the author of the experiment, of TV experiment on board Venera 13 and Venera 14. He says, we don't like explanation that it is alive on Venus. Nevertheless, we are unable to find another explanation.
Short answer is, you simply don't have any other explanation?
Neither me nor them.
So let's assume we are looking at actual life forms that are living on Venus as we speak, apparently. Now, a brief excursion into exobiology. I mean, one major argument against life on Venus is, well, it's too hot, there is no oxygen almost, it's a CO2 atmosphere, there's a huge greenhouse effect apparently on Venus, and there is no way that life can be sustained under these conditions.
And other people say there is no water. You see, water is very special feature, very special stuff. The temperature 374 degrees.
Of course, it would be critical. Evaporated. Yeah, I mean there wouldn't be liquid water. That's clear. So
below it, water could be in liquid state. However, on Venus, critical point is 320, and temperature on Venus is 460.
Okay,
that's why water in liquid form is absolutely impossible to be present on the surface of Venus. Our colleagues from Academy of Science has proposed many liquid stuffs that may be used by living features as a liquid stuff for their organisms. Besides it, you say no oxygen. For most part of biota on Earth, oxygen is not necessary to be used. All biosphere that is placed under the ground, and you know that there is a lot of biosphere in the ground, up to depth of 5 kilometers, and the total mass of it is exceeding many times all features that are living on surface of on Earth, and all they are living without light, all they are living without oxygen, and what is necessary for them? Only chemosynthesis, not photosynthesis. That's why for this side of origin of life, it is there are no problems. As for me, sometimes I am thinking about the next. If the evolution of Venus started with something similar to Earth, then gradually, for billions of years, the life could find ways to adjust to any conditions that were getting more and more severe or may hot during this planetary evolution. You see? As for Earth, we know that life is present everywhere, at low temperature, at high temperature, at low pressure, and high pressure, and so on and so on. That's why maybe during the evolution of the planet, even the life in our form, in our Earth form, first place on surface of Venus, could adjust and could evolve to forms existing now on surface of this very hot planet.
We have also examples on Earth of life that lives extremophils, I think they are called, that lives in very extreme conditions. Now, are you saying that the life forms on Venus, where do you think they originated? How do you think it evolved on Venus?
Well, you see, all other that we could discuss about it, it is quite a fantasy. We have no data about it.
Okay.
But let me come back to the question that you put, and I have forgotten to answer, about morphology. It is a very interesting point. And however, maybe this common shape of sects on surface of Earth and shape of some features on surface of Venus is explained just with most profitable way of existence. Maybe it is most profitable shape, morphology. And why we have found it at the very beginning, we were using two ways of investigation. First of all, to look something that is alike to Earth forms in morphology, and second, to find something that is moving. I shall send you what I have found about it in few recent papers, as I have told you at the very beginning. Yes?
Yes, okay. Can you summarize your findings here now?
Just repeating what Gektin says, that we have found some strange shapes, some strange features on surface of Venus. These strange features may be explained, for example, by moving them by wind. We have measurement at my experiments. We have measured speed of wind. We have calculated the pressure of moving wind on surface of these features, and we have found that it is not enough to move it by means of wind. That's why it is very suspicious that the feature is moving itself. Another is that about one of them, about one of these details, we saw that it was moving against the wind. That is rather strange. But it is so small, about 50 millimeters, and resolution is not enough for it, that we are not able to see what it is.
Yeah, so there goes another possible alternative explanation, that wind moved those objects.
Yes,
now, wherever they came from, they were there, and then the wind moved them away. But first of all, the wind wasn't strong enough at this time, although the atmosphere is much denser, but still. And as you just said, it moved against the wind direction.
Yes, this is also important about it. However, you see, these features that we saw moving against the wind, it was too small to see what it is really in its shape. It seems that it was symmetrical and nothing more about it. And please keep in mind that density of gas at the surface of Venus is 65 times more than on the surface of Earth. That's why action of wind were scaling its effect, rho v squared, is 8 times more than on surface of Earth. That's why we have measured wind that was about 40 centimeters per second, and it was equivalent of wind about 6 meters per second on surface of Earth. So many sides of Venusian physics should be taken into account. And of course, it is impossible in our short conversation to speak about all of them. Very special feature may be just duration of daytime on Venus, and maybe about it the next time.
Okay. Now, these features and the findings that you made, apparently they wouldn't have caused such a stir, if I may say.
They make say it again.
They wouldn't have caused such a such a stir or such a reaction also by the scientific community if it not had been published by someone of your caliber, if I may say. So I think what is really interesting about this is also who is making this claim. I mean, you have, I don't know, decades of experience in space research, and you were part of the original Venera missions. So this is not some arbitrary guy looking at those images and saying, oh yeah, that could be an animal or that could be a scorpion. It's actually coming from a scientist working for the Russian Academy of Science for how many years? I think 5 decades.
Nobody was dealing with this, nobody was sitting so long with these images and analyzing their content as do I. That's why people are a bit afraid about complexity of processing, as for it is necessary to have very good specialists about processing. I am looking for it. I am looking not only inside Russia, I am looking outside, for example, in Austria. And some people from the University of Vienna sent me a promising letter, but we see what could happen about it. I am ready if some will join to us in this kind of investigation. For the moment, we have something like maybe 4 or 3 people dealing with it on professional levels.
So you're searching for researchers around the world who would like to join you in your effort to prove or disprove that this is actually showing life forms living on Venus today. Now, taking into account your background, your personal opinion, how likely is it that you are looking at life forms here?
I don't see another explanation.
So it's 100%?
As for me, yes.
Okay. That's really astonishing. Wow. No, really. I mean, it's and it's also, I think, very brave to say that, because as we have seen, there are quite some hostile reactions too, if I may say, to what you have claimed. But then again, I mean, you're not making those claims out of thin air. It's going to be very interesting to see what will happen in the next months and weeks and years when this investigation goes on. So I'm very curious. In your opinion, what would change if we discovered that there is life on Venus? What kind of reactions would there be, and what would the philosophical implications be, the scientific implications, etc.? I mean, what would happen? How would the world change if we knew that there is life on Venus?
You are speaking just calling words that are rotating in my brain about it. Yes, it is a very, very strong philosophical impact. You see, and for a long time, my teachers, who now are not with us, told us, we are alone in the universe. And for a long time, as I was following them and thinking that really there is nothing like nothing like our life and the universe. Later, in my lectures, I began, it was after results of investigation of LHC meteorites coming from Mars, You remember the story. It was 1984. ALH 84001. Do you remember?
Well, I remember something in 98 where Clinton even made an announcement.
Yeah.
Okay, but that was 98, not 84.
No. As meteorites were found in 84.
Ah, okay. But, I see.
It is called ALH 84001. McKay and other people were investigating it. And you see, moreover, there is a very strong scientist here in Moscow, academician Rozanov, who believes that we see trains of life in meteorites, not only in CNH, also in meteorites that are investigated by him and his colleagues. He shows traces that seems were belonging somehow to living creatures. It is absolutely fantastic. If you wish, I can give you a citation as the magazine is translated in English.
This suggests almost that life is not very rare in the universe, but that it seems almost that it could be abundant out there.
The question is up to which intellectual level it could go up.
That's of course. I mean, intelligent life, I think, is a very different question. But life, primitive life, could be. I mean, if it's on Venus, then where isn't it? If we have life on Venus, then the question must be asked: where is there a planet where there is no life at all? I mean, isn't that almost turning around our world?
Venus is very close. That's why it is so interesting.
Yeah. Of course.
We are investigating with a stupidity, so insistent stupidity, Mars, spending lot of money for it. But nobody is thinking about other possibilities. Only last few years, new projects investigating of satellites of satellites of Jupiter and Saturn are considered as possible missions. But Venus is very close. It is absolutely necessary to continue this investigation, and we have already written special form about it. The progress could be achieved even with technology that is already existing.
And
some features were prepared for long living station on the surface of Venus. For example, where to take energy from wind. There are special electronics already produced, even coming back to electronic tubes, not semiconductors. There are possibilities to prolong this kind of investigation for many days. Then we shall see something absolutely unusual, I am sure.
Of course, there are other planets in the solar system as well that could harbor life, or they could be candidates. I mean, I'm just thinking of Europa.
Yes.
So who knows what's under the ice shelf of Europa?
Europa is very difficult to reach.
Far away.
Not in ballistical meaning, but due to very hard radiation around it.
Mm-hmm.
And satellites ocean are Ganymede and Callisto also. Radiation is not so hard there, and one of new projects is about it. It is European scientific community that now is considering this mission to be sent maybe something in 2022. In 2022.
Okay, so life could be out there. Until now, we do not hold the absolute proof in our hands, at least not a proof that would convince the whole scientific community. Now, if this proof came tomorrow, by some discovery in a meteorite, or by, the Mars missions, there could still also be maybe some primitive life forms on Mars, who knows. There might, as you just said, there is this meteor that originated on Mars that was found in the 80s that apparently already contained a proof for possible life on Mars.
possible ancient life.
Okay, so
Life that existed long, long ago.
Okay, so this is not contemporary life that we could see there, but some remnants of life in the past. However, on Venus there could be life right now. If the 100% proof that convinces really everybody came tomorrow, what would change?
What would change? A very good question. You see, there is a very good joke about it. Periodical system of elements, and one of its producers was Russian scientist Mendeleev of 19th century. And it is a joke about it like this, that Mendeleev is coming with open hands. It say, people, take it. And people say, football, football, football.
So you're saying if the absolute proof comes, everyone would go, all right, great. So what?
Well, and add please that as for me, I absolutely unable to understand why up to now we have not found life on Mars. It should exist there, but it is absent. Why?